If he thinks this guy is good enough, I think Tuchel will just put him in. I think he's that sort of manager who'll go for it. The thing on Saturday which struck me was the confidence. He just looks so short on confidence. And how are you going to get something out of Sterling? Because they need to be more from him.
Declan Rice said that when he came in pre-season, it took him 2 or 3 weeks to get used to what Arteta wanted to play.
Because we've seen this type of Arsenal performance before, where they dominate possession, don't create too many chances, don't take the chances.
Is there an area that's more competitive than Timber v White on the pitch? Like, I'm trying to think.
If we make a couple of signings in the summer, they've got to be big signings that are going to go straight into the first team.
I mean, West Ham's defence has been one of the worst defences in the Premier League this season. They've shipped a lot of goals.
Kudus is a player I think is a really, really nice player. I think he'd actually almost suit Arsenal in the way he can create something out of nothing now.
No, I'm really sorry, Howard. You've lost all your credibility. Have a day off, Martin. No, seriously. Why? No, honestly, why do you need to apologise? Because he ain't sorry.
Of course he's not. So it turns out Arsenal did sign a striker last summer after Mikel Merino turned to a prime Ian Wright at the King Power. I'm Darren Bent, and this is the Inside Gooners. Now, after that result for Arsenal at the weekend, as they narrowly got past Leicester, the title race is well and truly on. And joining me, an absolute legend, Arsenal legends, one of my hero, Mr. Perry Groves, and the Evening Standard, Simon Collins. Gentlemen, how are we doing? I mean, you're laughing there, Perry. You are one of my heroes. You know what I mean? You know me.
It out more, trust me. I've been described a lot of things in my time. Hero's never been one of them.
Honestly.
Weirdo, but not hero.
Never. Absolutely do yourself a disservice there. We've got to talk about, of course, the game at the weekend. Before we actually kind of go deep into it, the result, I was sitting there a little bit nervous the way the game was kind of panning out, but in the end, Arsenal got the result, Perry.
Yeah, I was watching the game. I was up at Villa Park and pretending I wasn't watching it, but really watching it. And then, as you said there, it gets to like 75 minutes and you're like, OK, 0-0. And I thought the best chance we had was be from a set piece or a free kick. And then, obviously, when Merino comes in and we score 2 goals from like free play, so that quietens everybody down a bit, didn't it? So we couldn't score from set pieces.
Correct.
But from Merino's point of view, his header was great, but I don't think he got enough credit for his second goal. I think he made that a lot easier than what it really was. One, he's taken up your position as a striker like at the far post, and 2, as it comes across, if you remember, he hits it on the half volley, and
with his left foot as well. By the way,
he just relaxed himself. You know when someone's confident and they just go, "I'll be all right." Because if it was me, I'd have like tried to smash it, probably hit the crossbar, come over. So those are the games that you just go, "Okay, yeah, we won it." Performance weren't brilliant, but I'm not bothered at this stage of the season whether performances are brilliant or not. You just win the games and then you move on, and it just quietens the noise down a little bit.
Yeah, I thought Moreno was brilliant, as you say it perfectly there. I think with all the injuries Arsenal had, this period in particular where you're missing, so many of the forward players, it's just a case of getting through and just staying in the race and trying to be there when you get your Saka and Martinelli back, just be in the race at that point so that they can make an impact. Because what you don't want is for those players to come back and the title be gone.
What impressed you the most about the performance? Because for me, when I was watching it, I was sitting there thinking, come on, because we've seen this type of Arsenal performance before where they dominate possession, don't create too many chances, don't take the chances. What impressed you about this particular performance? Because they kept going to the very end and eventually got over the line.
Yeah, I don't think there was a panic. I think there was a calm assurance. I think every Arsenal fan who's watching it probably had that nervous feeling in your stomach. You're watching the clock, like countdown, watching the clock tick down.
Yeah.
But then I just thought we'd talk about, obviously, Nwaneri, who was outstanding, and Lewis Skelly again, who taking the responsibility those young players are taking in this really sharp end of the season, I think is very impressive. And you have to say, that had been Arteta's mind. Like these days, they call them impactors now. They're not subs anymore, they're impactors. And you can say finishers, because Merino was a finisher. Arteta would have had that in his mind all season. I think Clarkey mentioned last week that if it was him, he would put Merino as like a centre forward. So Clarkey could be on the coaching staff next week sometime, couldn't he? So, but and again, when you're in that situation, Leicester played all right, to be fair. They were well organised. Normally, defensively, they're a little bit sloppy, but they weren't. But the belief that gives you that you can grind out victories. Do you know what I mean? Say the performance, you want to be free-flowing and, of course, winning 4s and 5s. But when you're coming, it's like Bentley, when you've been away and you've had an attritional away game and you're sat on that team coach or plane, whatever they come back these days, and you're looking around, you get this little bit of like belief in you. You think, we're all right. Whatever situation, we can get ourselves out of it.
Yeah, Nwaneri as well. The thing that sort of amazed me was A, his confidence to give me the ball, but 2, also how Arsenal's attack, a bit like when Saka plays, it kind of felt like we've got to give him the ball. If someone's going to make something happen, it's going to be Nwaneri. And, you know, the cross he supplies for Merino for the first goal is brilliant. And just the way at 17, I mean, you guys will know much better. I mean, how different is it when you're a 17-year-old playing in the team to when you're a 27? Because Arteta's talking about no fear, he's got no scars. And do you kind of understand that, how he just plays with complete freedom? There's no sort of pressure on him?
Do you know what? I remember when I first got in the team at Ipswich, and you were a bit nervous, and I was 17 when I first got in the team as well. But there was still that kind of caution that I didn't want to let anyone down, didn't want to give the ball away. I think what's really special about certain teenagers we've seen, like Nwaneri certainly fits into that mould. Wayne Rooney's another prime example. There's no fear there. If he gives the ball away, I want the ball again. Like a lot of 17-year-olds that get in the team might make 1 or 2 mistakes and hide for the rest of the game. Not hide for the rest of the game, but a little bit unsure about, do I take the ball again now? Overthink it. Nwaneri's like, I don't care what happens next. Just keep feeding me the ball. And the fact that the Arsenal players keep giving him the ball, regardless of if he's marked tight, if he's in space, if it's a bit of a risky ball, they'll still give it to him, Perry.
You know what, as well, he's always played above his level. He's always played, when you look at him, he was 14 playing in the under-18s. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
So and then he makes his debut at 15 and a half. And I didn't know what colour pants I was going to put on at 15 and a half, let alone. But what they've done is as well, obviously there's an unbelievable natural talent in there, along with Lewis Skelly. Yeah. But you've got to give a lot of credit to the academy and the coach in the way that they've brought him through, right? Because he played when he was 15 and a half, then he was brought out for a little while, and then obviously played the under-18s, under-21s. And as brilliantly gifted as what he is technically, and he plays free, he reminds me of Bukayo Saka and his upper body strength, where they're slight, they're probably about 5'9", 5'10", and their sleight of build and their mobility is great, but they know how to use their body. And Lewis Skelly is exactly the same.
Do you know what's funny? I mean, that's a great point, because you've compared Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly, the way they use their bodies, to Saka then, and you're 100% right. Joe Cole compared him to Messi, which is, I mean, that's...
All right, Joe, calm down.
That is some praise.
Yeah.
But I mean, the obvious question is going to come about 2 of them, and we'll get to the negatives in terms of the performance, but the positives. You talk about Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly, and I think for both of those, England is going to become a real possibility. Now, I genuinely believe that maybe Lewis Skelly's England shout will come before Nwaneri's, and that's simply for the fact of what England have got in that particular area of the pitch at left back. I'm not quite sure who holds onto the shirt at the minute, but can you see in the very near future, and I'll come to you first, Simon, those guys in the England squad, maybe in the next one, Thomas Tuchel's next squad?
I mean, Lewis Skelly, I think, is the perfect one, because that position is, if you were going to say anywhere, where can you get in the squad, I think it's left back. Yeah. I think Lewis Hall said it after he made his debut, actually, in November, that he kind of realised that is a position where you can get in, because obviously Luke Shaw's his injury problems. I think beyond Lewis Hall, when you could play Levi Colwell there, you know, Chilwell's had to move to Palace. I think that is a spot that's open. Nwaneri, I just think it's difficult. There's so many attacking players there, like the abundance of, you know, quality players to try and get. That's probably the hardest position to get in. But I think for him, if you're playing in a team fighting for the title, and Tuchel, you know, look at his project. He's 18 months there. Yeah. He's not going to care about it. And if he thinks this guy is good enough, I think Tuchel will just put him in. I think he's that sort of manager who'll go for it. The
thing is, as well, with Nwaneri, we all know about his creativity. He actually shoots from 20, 25 yards. Yeah. And as an Arsenal fan, I don't think we take enough shots from, because we know that teams like defend deep now, and we try and go from, sometimes we can be a bit clunky, you know, where it's a bit formulaic, where you go down the left, you go down the right. And I want Odegaard and Declan Rice to take this out of Nwaneri's playbook, where when teams are backing off, that you just like release a shot from 20, because when then what happens is, you know what happens is, if you do start doing that, teams then have to come and close you down, and then there's little spaces. But if you don't start shooting, then they can sit a little bit deeper. But Nwaneri will be, if you're Mikel Arteta, you wouldn't want him to be in this squad anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because you want him just to have a nice little like rest basically, and just like calm himself down. And as Arteta said, sometimes you have to get away just for 3 or 4 days. You know, it's like Bentley, just to calm your brain down a little bit, you know, because the level, if you're talking about elite levels, you're talking about, you say, top 2 of the Premier League, you're talking about last 16 in the Champions League. So if he can stay consistent, then he will be in the England squad. But what'll happen is, you know as well, as a younger player, your graph is like that. It's very rarely, as you get to the end of your career, then it's more undulating. Do you know what I mean? So, but he's just playing free. There's no fear with him at all.
Where do you think his best position is, Nwaneri?
I think because you know when you're always the best player in the playground.
Yeah.
Right. Well, not that I was, but you play as a 10.
Yeah.
Because every manager goes, you're that good.
Get you on the ball.
You go like Grealish when he was at Aston Villa.
Of course, yeah.
Like, so I think Nwaneri's played all the way through there. I think at the minute he's better in the right side, but there's another thing I'd like Arteta to do more is I like him to switch the wide players over a bit more. You know, if it's not happening for you, when Saka was playing and Martinelli was playing, sometimes, you know, full-back shining beside you think, well, just change over.
Yeah.
Just give yourself 10, 15 minutes. But I think he will end up becoming like the 10 or the Odegaard who ends up like pulling the strings. You know what I mean? Yeah, so he's that good.
Well, listen, Nwaneri, I thought Ethan Nwaneri, again, fantastic performance. That was the positive. The negatives, and there's always going to be in a team performance. Raheem Sterling. I wouldn't say when he came to the club, I was really excited, but I thought, oh, okay, here we go. I could understand why they've took the gamble. So far, he's got one goal this season, that was Bolton in the EFL Cup. What do you make of his performance, not only on Saturday, which it was poor, but also in general since he's been at Arsenal?
Yeah, I mean, the thing on Saturday which struck me was the confidence. He just looked so short on confidence. And maybe it was because the contrast between the two wingers. Like, you looked at Nwaneri on the right, absolutely flying, being compared to Messi and Sterling on the left, you know, really, really struggling. I think it's been difficult for him. I think he hasn't really had a sort of run in the team. And, you know, when Saka got injured, I think everyone's like, all right, this is the moment for Sterling. He then gets injured himself.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a really big situation for Arteta to manage over the next month, because you look at the forward options, he needs Sterling in some capacity, whether that's starting off the bench, he needs him to do something. And I think man management now, as much as, you know, we talk about managing Nwaneri and the pressure around him, how are you going to get something out of Sterling? Because they need to be more from him. But for me, it's just the confidence. I thought he just looked so short of confidence on Saturday, and it was actually quite sad watching him, I think, given how great a player he's been for England in particular. To see him like that, it was really difficult, I think, to watch, actually.
You know what it is? His head's scrambled at the minute. Because as you get older, he relied on his pace, obviously, when he was younger.
The little darting runs.
Exactly, the darting runs. And then, when he came on against Man United in the FA Cup, he had a 25, 30-minute period where you thought, oh, yeah, you're looking sharp. He was, like, taking people on, getting him in penalty box. I think the missed penalty against Girona, because when Havertz wasn't scoring, we gave him the penalty against Bournemouth, and he scored. And everybody, you know, it's like everybody goes, oh, your penalty, think, no, there's miles more pressure. If you haven't scored for a run of games, and you're highlighted, and if you score, you get the confidence. If you don't score, your confidence drops a little bit.
Well, you've seen it with Havertz. You said he scores the penalty. Obviously, everyone gives it belief. He goes in, he scores goals. And for Sterling, it's
gone the other way. And you can tell, again, I was watching it. Every time I looked up, he was offside.
Yeah.
And he's the furthest man looking right across the line. Now, if you do that once, you go, OK, you might be a foot offside or a toe offside. He did it 3 times, and he was looking as if to say, well, what do you mean I'm offside? And you think, Raheem, you're the experienced player.
Of course, yeah.
Now, if I was Mikel Arteta, I agree with Si, you're going to need him. This week, to get his confidence back, I would say to one of the youth team left-backs or, you know, under 20, right, we're going to do a few 1v1s, but you'd pull the left-back to one side and go, by the way, don't tackle him. I want you to pretend you're going to tackle him. Don't make it look so obvious, but let him go past you a few times. You know, what did you do when you weren't scoring goals? You know, you're finishing. You do it in front of empty net. Do you do it whatever? What did you do? You know?
Just try to practice. Keep trying to put the ball in the back of the net. Keep getting into the positions where maybe if I'd been missing chances, get back into those positions and try and finish it off. But that kind of reminds me, Perry, because when he first started, I remember his first training session. Do you remember they put the video on social media and he was going past the fullback, he was scoring goals. I remember thinking, he looks really, really sharp. But the longer the season's gone on, I feel for Raheem, he's come away from that. And I think, Simon, you made a really good point about how you manage him, because what do you do in the next game? Because you think you've got West Ham coming up. Moreno's just scored 2 goals. He's going to be full of confidence. Do you start Moreno and then almost kill Sterling? No, I won't say kill Sterling, but Sterling as a player, you understand, if someone comes in and does a better job than you, he must be thinking in his back of his head, I'm not going to play next game.
You get it. It's the future.
You understand it. But then for Moreno coming in, you almost feel like, well, he's got to play. So then where would that, do you think, leave Sterling, Perry? Do
you know what? Sometimes, again, like as a senior player, he's seen it all. But he has lost his... You're someone when you rely on pace. He's lost his pace. He's lost half a yard to yard of the peak Raheem Sterling. Then you have to find other ways. You know, it's like Bent. So sometimes you need a bit of a cuddle. You need a bit of how good that you are. And if it was me, I would actually give him a go at the false 9. I'd put Trossard on the left put Sterling in the middle, and then get Nwaneri on right, and just see how that goes. Because sometimes when things happen quickly around you, you end up playing off instinct.
Yeah.
And he's good in little tight areas, and he's played false nine for Man City before. Whereas when you're out wide, you're more exposed because you're one. You know what I mean? You're 1v1, and you know that everybody's watching. Do you know what I mean? So when you're in the middle, so it's a difficult one, really difficult one for Arteta. And I do generally feel for him on a human level, because you can tell that his mind and his head isn't right. You know that he's completely straight. There was a couple of times where he went to take Justin on, and he sort of run straight at him, and you knew that because normally you go outside to go inside, or inside go. You know what I mean? You change your angle, you do a foot over. He just ran dead straight, and he sort of stopped. You know what I mean?
Didn't have the real belief that he could go past the fullback.
Yeah, and it was like Justin looked at him and thought, all right, I'll just take the ball off you.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a tackle. So, it's very difficult when you're in that position. But I think that Arteta will manage him. Do you know what I mean?
And it's not a lack. I don't think it's a lack of effort or Sterling not trying. Like, you can see he's genuinely sort of working. It's just not sort of clicking for him, and I think that's probably almost more frustrating. I think when you're watching it and you're seeing a player who's given the rule, and it's not quite working. And maybe that is an idea: just move position, try and change it. You know, you simplify the role, perhaps. But I think this sort of period, I agree with you. I think if I was Sterling and I'm one of 3 fit forwards, and I get dropped for a guy who's sort of playing as a makeshift striker, I just think your confidence would take an even bigger hit. And I think for Arteta, given how good Merino was off the bench as well as an impact, I think maybe go like, right, let's try again. Home crowd, try and get behind him and just wait for that click. Because it can take one moment. You know, I think we on here talking about Jesus and saying how it looks so difficult, and suddenly it turned for him. So I think there is a possibility that things can turn around.
I mean, 5 years, you look at 5 years ago, Sterling's only 30. So you look at him and you think, he's only 30, he's been around, he's been playing football for a long time. 5 years ago, he was England's best player at the Euros when England got to the final. It was almost like everyone was talking about him in that tournament. And you fast forward 5 years and he's a complete shadow of himself. And if I'm Mikel Arteta, I think I'd probably keep it as it was, as you said, maybe change position, maybe Mikel Merino. Because even when you look at Mikel Merino, who, yes, was the hero at the weekend, I wouldn't say I've been blown away yet. Now, I don't know what you two guys think. I think he's done okay, but I wouldn't say he's been one of those players in the team where you've said he has to play every single week. I think that was his best moment so far, coming off the bench against Leicester.
And also what'll happen is, then his confidence goes on to another level.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He feels relevant. You know, and sometimes being a squad player and a bit pot player himself sometimes when you're in and you get a run of games, you feel really important, and other times you don't.
Yeah.
I think he now feels really important. But I think when he's played in like the Havertz position, when you play sort of inside left, he's looked okay.
Yeah.
But he's better, his midfield position is better when he's coming from deeper, when he's making deeper runs into... And that's why I think his first header, was more of him used to be getting in the box as a midfield player and knowing the position to take up and coming in late, exactly what he did. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's done okay. And if you look back when Declan Rice first came, because Mikel Arteta, it is very detailed. You know, as I said, sometimes it can be a little bit too paint by numbered, but it's very choreographed. Declan Rice said that when he came in pre-season, it took him 2 or 3 weeks to get used to what Arteta wanted to play. And Arteta took him to one side and said, look, I know that I give you, these patterns, but you're overthinking it a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So I think Merino was like that when he first got inside, because he was being very safe when he was getting the ball. When he'd win it and then just give it quickly to someone else. So, but he now feels relevant. You know what I mean? He now feels that he's part of an important part of the squad.
And he didn't get a pre-season, he did. Merino obviously arrived really late, went all the way at the Euros, first training session, injures his shoulder. Yeah. So I do think for him it's been a difficult acclimatisation because he hasn't had the proper pre-season this summer. But I also think the sort of benefit of maybe sticking with Sterling, having Merino on the bench, is that everyone in the team and also the fans, if it gets that West Ham game and you know it's 0-0 after an hour and they see Merino coming on, subconsciously people think, oh well, this is what Merino does, isn't he? And he's now the game changer. He's the guy who comes off the bench and sort of wins you the game. So I think that might be an idea where they keep him as that sort of impact player, and it dramatically changes the way you play if you have that big striker. But I think the team did suit having a focal point as a number.
So I had one little bit of advice off the pitch. make sure you get your missus a Valentine's Day present. Because he thought it was funny. Yeah. Right? And he went, oh, that's good. By the way, that will be remembered in 10 years' time. Yeah. Trust 100%. Do you know what I mean? So make sure you get that right first.
That's the most important part about
it. Not exactly, yeah.
Forget the 2 goals, the Valentine's
Happy wife, happy life.
I mean, I think it's really important that Mikel Merino, whether he starts or comes off the bench, because when you look at the attacking situation, we know, decimated by injuries. We've all spoke about that. But when you look at the players in our team who are perceived to be the guys on the front foot to get the goals, you've got the likes of Odegaard, 2 league goals. We know he's better than that. Moreno's got 4 league goals. Declan Rice has got 1 league goal. Obviously, he plays at 8. You've got Nwaneri, who's doing really well, 3 goals. Raheem Sterling, no goals. Trossard, 4. I think we're going to really need Mikel Merino and those goals, because without the likes of Saka, I know they'll be back soonish, Martinelli. How important is Merino then in terms of just being a goal threat and getting them goals from midfield? Yeah,
I think getting the goals from midfield, we all know how good we are at set pieces. Yeah. So again, he gives you like another option from the set pieces. And as I mentioned before, with Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard, I think they've got to take more responsibility. I think they've got to take when we know we're in the final third, that they get their shots off. So, and don't underestimate either, if it's a little bit attritional, which we'll talk about the West Ham game later on, you imagine when he starts warming up, and then if he comes on for the last half an hour, the energy that's going to inject into the Emirates. You know what I mean? When you see that person coming on, and you see that, oh, we've got our super, and he's not wearing a cape, but we've got our superhero coming on. You know what I mean? It gives everybody else a lift. Yeah. So that we've missed. Well, the goals. Odegaard's had his injuries, hasn't he? You know, so
still think his numbers should be a little bit better though.
Yeah, they should be. And I actually thought against Leicester, without being sensational, I thought he was just getting back into his rhythm, because a couple of times when he first come back in, the 2 games, you're playing on adrenaline, you know what I mean, and excitement. Yeah. And you thought, wow, then his level dropped off. But the way that he played, I call him the conductor, obviously the baton with the orchestra. Yeah. Then I thought against Leicester, he was taking responsibility, even when things were a little bit attritional against Leicester. I thought he was taking responsibility and trying to get us going. So I thought he's nowhere near. Not nowhere near. He's getting back to the outstanding player that we know he is. Do you know what I mean? You can just see he's getting back into that rhythm.
In terms of the squad, it was interesting. Arteta was talking about how Saliba had volunteered to play up front, and obviously Moreno's got an opportunity.
Saliba, you just stay where you are.
You're all right, thanks.
You stay there.
I mean, you'll know much better, Darren, but as a player, is it something that in the dressing room everyone's always, oh, give me a go up front, I'd be great up front? Or, do you think Moreno will actually sort of relish, he's been signed as a midfielder, but if the manager says to you, look, do you want to go up front? Here you go. Do you think he'll kind of relish that opportunity to be that?
Yeah, I think he'll understand the situation that he's in. Of course, he probably wouldn't want to play there on a long-term basis, but to get yourself in the side and to have an impact, of course, you'll play wherever the manager wants to play you. Short-term, I think it worked, and perfectly, because there are going to be games where he goes up front and maybe it doesn't work. But in this occasion here, where the confidence is flowing, you've just got 2 goals, you're pretty much going to play wherever the manager wants you to play. And again, it's a positive for Arsenal. He took his chance, you'd say, the 2 chances. Again, another positive was Calafiori coming on, left back, and certainly the return of Ben White. Now, I absolutely love Ben White. I think he was sensational for Arsenal before the injury. Lewis Skelly versus Calafiori. I don't really like to go Lewis Skelly versus Calafiori, but with a mind looking forward, West Ham coming up, it might be Bowen in that situation on that right-hand side. Who do you feel more comfortable with? I'll come to you first, side. Who do you feel more comfortable with, Calafiori, Lewis Skelly, or is there a place for both, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I like Lewis Skelly. I think at the moment I'd be sticking with him. And I actually enjoyed Calafiori. I mean, I know he's a defender, but he kind of feels like an attacking sub. Yeah. Just in the way, I mean, you saw for the second goal, the way he got the ball, drove with it, played it out wide. Yeah. And I think it's when you're trying to get something off the bench, I feel like he's a player, he sort of brings it. I like Lewis Skelly. I just think security on the ball, I think he's absolutely brilliant. It was a great interception as well for the chance that Leicester had. But I would stick with that back 4 as it is. I think it feels pretty settled. And I'd have Calafiori as, again, someone off the bench who brings energy, brings a bit of drive forward. But that's going to be a difficult situation. And the same on the other flank. I was thinking in terms of the squad, is there an area that's more competitive than Timber v White on the pitch? Like, I was trying to think, two players for that position. I know Timber played left back a bit, didn't he, before? But that there is going to be a nice headache to have. But that, I think, is arguably the most competitive spot.
Do you know what? I'll let you come in, Perry. That is a fascinating battle for me as well, because when I think back to Arsenal a couple of seasons ago, that little triangle of Saka, Odegaard and Ben White, it was so strong. The overlapping runs, the inside runs from Ben White as well, the chemistry. They almost knew where each other was. And the fact Ben White's not been there, and now Saka's not there, I just wonder if Mikel Merino might stick with Timber simply for the back he's been playing.
Yeah, and I think the way that we're playing, we like to overload midfield. I think Timber's better at going into that midfield right-hand side than what Ben White is, where I think Ben White is probably better 1v1.
How long do you think it could be before we see Ben White maybe really challenging Timber for that position? And the reason I ask that question is because he's been out for a long time, so he's not going to get in any time soon because there's no reason to drop Timber. But it's going to get to a point where if Ben White does get an opportunity, he's probably going to take it because of, as you said, how good he is.
Yeah, he'll get like 25, 30 minutes, you know, when you just like ease players back into it. Because as well, it's difficult, although you'll get your match legs playing in the under 20 side. It's no, you know what it's like, but it's no what it's saying. First 10 minutes when you're playing in the big boys football, you're breathing out your backside, aren't you? Because you think, oh, this temperature. But I'll throw a curveball in for you, right?
Ooh,
here's a curveball.
I like this.
When Lewis Skelly, people forget he's not a natural left back. No, he was playing centre midfielder, right? So I think that he's got the ability. So if Calafiori comes on and plays at left back, I think that Lewis Skelly, if you're looking in the wide positions, I think that he's good enough to go and play on the right-hand side or left-hand side, even further forward, because in tight areas, he's got fantastic ability and he can take people on. Do you know what I mean? So I think that gives you just another option where you can just go, okay, Miles, you go a little bit further forward, even if it's intimate or even further in the wide areas, and you have Calafiori left back.
Yeah, I think Lewis Skelly, that's going to be an interesting debate over the next years, is where he ends up if he goes into that midfield position, because I think Wilshere for the under-18s had him as a sort of number 6, number 8, and the thing they really liked about him in the academy was his ability to drive the ball, to carry the ball, and he does it a bit from left back, but if you had him in, like, you know, you look at the way Rice drives with it, and Lewis Skelly was in those areas, I think he could be a really big player there. So that's going to be an interesting development. But I think right now you just keep him there, left back. But when you're looking for options, things to change it, I would happily put him forward for the last 20 minutes of a game.
Of course. Again, just to kind of wrap up the Leicester performance as a whole, happy with the performance, happy with the way Arsenal have maybe managed with obviously the injury, a lot been made of the injuries, moving forward. It wasn't the most fantastic performance, but did enough to win the game.
You have to find, all you do is find ways. You just find ways to win games and you park it and move. And what he does, especially you've got a week as well, that is a big help. You know, when you're like preparing for obviously the West Ham game on Saturday, then, you know, it's like Bettany changing. People forget, we're 15 unbeaten. Yeah. I know we've drawn too many. Liverpool 21 unbeaten. So it's not as if all the injury problems we've had that we've fallen away. No. Do you know what I mean?
We're still there.
We're still and what you have to do is you have to make sure that you keep Liverpool honest. You have to make sure that you keep putting the pressure on, because the Wolves game, Liverpool got nervous in the second half. Yeah. And Wolves could have easily equalised. And that was because we won the game on the Saturday. Of course. That little bit more pressure gets put on. Do you know what I mean? So that's what we just have to keep gnawing away.
It'll be the same this weekend as well, obviously West Ham before Liverpool play. And I think it's just, Arteta said it actually around the sort of Christmas time. He was just like, look, Liverpool look like they're hard to catch, but if they do falter, you need to be there. You can't have them go through a bad run and then be like, well, Arsenal were never there and they just got away with it.
All right, well, listen, moving on. Arsenal, at the time of recording, published their accounts this year. So, Simon, what can you tell us about that? Have we got a lot of money to spend? That's what I want to know.
We're bundled.
They still made a loss, but a lot less than it was last year. So it was about 50 million a year ago, this time around 17. The big thing is the revenues, a record revenue, over 600 million. And when you look at the accounts, that's come from the Champions League money. And you remember when Arsenal had those troubles sort of a few years back when they slipped out of the Champions League and the club spoke about, you know, Champions League wage bill, Europa League money. They've now got that Champions League money coming in. The revenue bringing that is huge, particularly even more this year because you will have the extended league phase, which we'll see in the next accounts. But also the wage bill, I think, was an interesting. It's gone up over 100 million. So, I mean, that's obviously renewals for likes of Saka, Saliba, Declan Rice, Kai Havertz. So very positive. I think financially the club's looking a lot better. And one thing the club did reference was also the commercial strategy. I think they've tried to maximise those revenues and compete on a bigger level. So I think positive, but also I think it shows you the value of that Champions League money, and that is why it's so important. We talk about the title race, but for Arsenal being in the Champions League and going deep in it, that's what's going to affect your spending in the summer.
I'm no financial expert, but you get it right on the pitch. Yeah. Everything else then falls into place. Everything does, because I'm lucky enough to do tours at the Emirates and waving duties sometimes on match days. People say, "Goose, mate, go and get us a couple bottles of wine with you." I go, "No, I used to play about 20 years ago." So but everything is sold out. on the corporate level is sold out. The boxes are sold out. I think their match day revenue is like £4.3 million, isn't it? Which and Champions League money. So it's important. We're in a good financial position, but every Arsenal fan will be looking at that now, going, okay, you've kept your powder dry in this transfer window. We have to go big because there'll be 7 players that will be gone at the end of the season. So you get that wages back. So there's going to be more money, obviously, in that side of it. So if we make a couple of signings in the summer, they've got to be big signings that are going to go straight into the first team. And we all know it's not even an elephant in the room, is it? Do you know what I mean?
Striker.
Yeah, exactly. We all know exactly what it is. And we have to go big.
To be fair, you said that about the centre forward, and I hope it comes in, and there are going to be a lot of people going out the door as well. Do you think that will make a massive difference then in terms of the calibre of player that they bring in? And the reason I kind of make that kind of point is because, yes, we know Arsenal want a centre forward, but I'm talking about, is there a difference between a Watkins who could be 80 million and an Isak who could be 150? Will there be enough money to kind of, is it that level or is it?
I think when you've got the Champions League money, it changes the market you're shopping in. Partly because of the player, playing with Champions League club, but also because of the revenue that comes with it. I think Perry is exactly right. It's the team dictate the success off the pitch. If you are a sponsor or if you're even a tourist coming to London, Arsenal is the team you want to go to. The style of football they play, the manager, everything around the club, and I think it's basically capitalising on this success now and bringing in a player of the calibre that matches the goals you're trying to achieve. And I think fans will tolerate a quiet January if in the summer you get who you really want. And I think that will be where the proof will be.
Right, we're Gooners, right? We're Gooners, right? So I want Newcastle to get beat in the League Cup final.
Yep.
And I want Newcastle to come back 8th in the Premier League.
Job, Perry, that's how me and you were aligned.
Right. It's totally selfish, right? But then it doesn't matter if Newcastle say how much they want for Isak. Isak then says, I'm too good for this level. Isak is a Champions League player, and he'll be looking, thinking, and he will then put pressure on Newcastle to go. It's all very them saying, we're going to keep him. Now, if they get in the Champions League, it obviously changing it because he's playing at top level. And if they do win the Carabao Cup, then fine. But if they don't, there's no way that Isak will be playing for Newcastle next season because he'll be like his agents and whatever going, he's too good. And then it comes down to the price.
That's 100% spot on, because that's the way I was thinking. I understand the way Newcastle are going about their business and the trajectory they're on. It's going to be hard to kind of price any of their best players away, Nwaneri, Tonali, Isak. But if they don't finish in the Champions League, and as you said there, Perry, he is a Champions League centre forward. He is probably the one that's on everyone's radar. Everyone would love to have him. He's already shown now, because we've seen strikers completely smash it elsewhere, come to the Premier League and struggle. He's found it pretty easy, hasn't he, really, coming there, the goals that he scored. He's the one I would love Arsenal to get. But I think a lot depends on, Simon, where Newcastle finish this season.
Massively, yeah. And I mean, the thing with Isak is that we're talking about him in the same breath as Erling Haaland. That says all you need to know.
I think he's better all round.
Yeah.
And that's not I think as a goal scorer, Haaland's probably the best on the planet. Yeah. But as in terms of all round, I think he's the best.
Isak actually closes down.
Yeah.
He works. When he by the way, there's a thing with Newcastle, their players, they pick their games. When they're at it, he closes down and his lateral movement is better. He actually goes across the pitch, doesn't he? Ends up in different areas where Haaland, you've seen it, but he just jogs about in the middle and goes, I'm going to score in a minute.
And I reckon if you asked Gabriel and Saliba who they least like playing against, they would say Isak. This season, look at all 3 of those games.
His movement, absolutely.
He's absolutely... I've rarely seen Saliba have as tough a time as he has in those 3 games.
Yeah, he's roughed them up. Well, listen, it's going to be fascinating. So I feel a little bit more confident now that Arsenal are going to get someone. I knew Perry gave a little rendition as well, so I'm looking forward to that. Now, we take on West Ham at home this weekend, and joining us now is Dom Smith from the Evening Standard. Dom, welcome to Inside Gooners. How you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. I've got to start with the obvious question. New manager, Graham Potter. I think there has been a slight improvement in the team's performance. You've looked, I think, a little bit better. How have you found him so far?
Yeah, they have looked a little bit better, but of course we've seen how the likes of David Moyes is doing at Everton. I mean, he's had an instant impact, and I don't think it's been quite that good from Graham Potter. I mean, the fact of the matter is they have lost 4 of their first 6 games under Potter, West Ham. And yeah, the football has been a little bit better, but I think it's been sort of small improvements, and it's going to be a longer term thing for sure for him.
Now, last season, of course, we know that you came to the Emirates, you won 2-0, a little bit of a smash and grab, Arsenal the better side, and you managed to get the 2-0 win.
You had to get it in there.
Of course. But how are you feeling about coming to the Emirates this weekend? Arsenal in good form, 15 unbeaten. What are your expectations for the game?
Well, I think it could be very difficult for West Ham, to be honest. I mean, Arsenal have been able to make sure that their exit from the Carabao Cup hasn't sort of derailed their Premier League form, and West Ham, of course, as I've said, have been slightly better under Potter, but not to a huge extent. I think it's going to be a difficult one. I mean, they've got difficulties up front. They haven't got Mikel Merino available, of course, or Nicholas Füllkrug up front. So I think there could be a start for the first time for Evan Ferguson, who of course joined on loan from Brighton. But yeah, it could be a very difficult afternoon for West Ham, and if it goes badly, then it'll be 5 defeats in 7 for Potter, and that really wouldn't be a good start at all.
Yeah, Dom, what have you made of the little you've seen of Evan Ferguson? Obviously, I know he was linked with Arsenal at some points, with Chelsea. He's had a tough time at Brighton, but has there been sort of promise in the little you've seen of him so far?
Yeah, I mean, he came off the bench against in the last game against Brentford, which was a really disappointing match for West Ham. I think in the first half, when he wasn't on the pitch, it was probably one of West Ham's worst halves of football of the season. But yeah, in terms of Ferguson, I think he and Matthias Tell were probably two of the more talked about players in the January transfer window. Of course, there were lots of clubs looking at Evan Ferguson, including Arsenal from afar and Chelsea. I think people knew that he was going to become available. Brighton were willing to let him go. But I think West Ham's interest was probably more serious than most clubs. Bayer Leverkusen were in for him as well. But yeah, West Ham, of course, he knew that he would be pretty much guaranteed game time at West Ham, given the injuries to Füllkrug and to Antonio as well. So I think he will get a good run in the team. And yeah, he's a very capable footballer. Of course, he was being talked about as a sort of potential £100 million player. One of the most exciting teenagers in English football when he broke through at Brighton. I think he's probably suffered a few kind of injuries and he's not kicked on in quite that way. But yeah, I think he's still an exciting player. And certainly for these next few months, he could be an important player for West Ham as they bid to make a strong end to what is frankly a dead season now, really, with them being out of the Cups.
Dom, do you think the off-field problems of Luis Paquetá is affecting him on the pitch?
I don't know, because I do actually think he's been slightly better under Potter. I mean, I don't think the results yet have been better under Potter, but I think he is a player who has looked a little bit more lively than he did under Julian Lopetegui, the previous manager. But he picked up a knock in training yesterday, and I think he's a doubt for the weekend. I think West Ham are yet to fully assess him in terms of knowing how big the injury could be. But yeah, if we're talking about his impact this season, certainly the last few games under Potter, I think he's looked a little bit better. But it's certainly, we've seen him in better form than in previous seasons, Lucas Paquetá for West Ham, than we've seen him this season. So he's certainly not playing his best football, is he?
Dom, what are you expecting from Arsenal? Because we saw at the weekend, of course, Mikel Merino come off the bench and score 2 goals, was the hero. Raheem Sterling's performance maybe wasn't as good as we'd all hope. What are you expecting, and what type of performance are you expecting from Arsenal to come against West Ham?
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal's results have been not too bad recently, but I think their performances have been quite inconsistent. I mean, it's difficult to know what to expect. I think they'll probably go similar again with sort of Leandro Trossard or Mikel Merino as the sort of nominal striker. It's going to be difficult to see whether they make that work in this match. But certainly West Ham's defence has been one of the worst defences in the Premier League this season. They've shipped a lot of goals. I think only really the sort of teams really in and around the bottom 3 are comparable in terms of goals conceded. So I think if Arsenal get it right in the final third, they could have a good day at the office. But it's been a difficult one for West Ham this season at centre back. Certainly players like Mavropanos, who I think previously played for Arsenal, actually have not endured a particularly good season at all.
Dom, I was at the Villa West Ham game, and I think that was probably West Ham's best performance under Graham Potter, where they basically went like a 5-3-1-1. Kudus was floating around Paquetá up front. So do you think, and West Ham made it very physical, which surprised me. So you think that's the way they're going to approach it on Saturday? I
think it'll be no different against Arsenal, but certainly there'll be an emphasis on physicality. Players like Kilman and at right back Aaron Wan-Bissaka have got that in their locker, and I think they'll have to do that to go toe to toe with Arsenal.
Simon, where worries you for West Ham? Because I think there's a severe lack of pace in the West Ham team when you've watched him, certainly defensively, as Don was just saying there. But where, from Arsenal's perspective, can West Ham really trouble Arsenal, do you think?
I think Kudus and Burn will be key. I think if they're going to play the sort of way you expect West Ham to sort of sit deep and soak up and try and hit Arsenal on the counter, those players are vital. And Kudus is a player I think is a really, really nice player. I think he'd actually almost suit Arsenal in the way he can create something out of nothing outside the box. He's got that creativity. So I think for Arsenal, that is where they will just need to be careful. I think there'll be a desire to try and be on the front foot, to try and dominate.
Do you know what? They made it really stop-start against Villa. They were very physical. They were clever, like niggly fouls, little tactical fouls. They were aggressive, especially the three centre-halves. If whoever we play up front, whether it's Sterling or whether Trossard, they will go and they actually press. They'll sit a little bit deep. When it comes into their half, then they'll go and press. And Kudus, he's the one that worked, because I think he's a player that, again, another one that picks his games.
Yeah.
And I know that he knows that he's in the shop window when he's playing at the Emirates. And against Villa, they played him as Paquetá was up front, and then they played Kudus as like the floater.
Dom Smith there from the Evening Standard. Listen, I'd like to sit here and think, yeah, we're Arsenal, comfortable. I mean, still part of me still thinks a bit nervous, but Arsenal should get the job done, though.
It should do, yeah. And I think it might be a case of trying to break West Ham down, which Arsenal have struggled a bit this season. But I just think, yeah, they should, that should be a result that you win and you put a little bit of pressure on Liverpool before they play Sunday.
It's great that Paquetá might be injured. Only want him just a little calf.
Yeah,
a little calf.
Not a bad one.
No, not a bad one. No,
just out for the weekend.
I don't wish anything really sort of long term on him. But every fan's like, oh, that's Andy, because he's another one again who can pick his games. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He can raise his level.
All right, well, it's time now for questions from the viewers. I'll give you a question one. This first one's from Dom O'Connell. He says, with Tomiyasu out for the rest of the season, should we sell him in the summer? I'll come to you first, Simon.
I think they'll struggle to sell him in the summer would be the issue. I think, given when he's missed the whole season of football, I think fans and almost prospective buyers have kind of forgotten what he brings. It's difficult with his contract. He's going to have a year left in the summer, but there is an option. So I think I'd almost be, keep him for that next season, try and raise his value, and then look to sell him. And it's a shame because he is a great player, but availability is key, isn't it? You need players who are going to be available, and he just hasn't been that.
I think other fans don't understand his importance to Arsenal because of the versatility, as you said there, that he can play right back, centre back, left back. And although he hasn't had much game time, I still think if he was to go in the summer, I'd still be a little bit, but as you said there, I mean, you can't just keep someone for sentimental values. I do think, though, there have been times where Arsenal have needed him, and I think he's performed. Yeah,
and I think as well what we said about the financial side, so whether you get him off, I know he's not going to be one of the highest earners, but you get him off the wages, and then that goes to your revenue that you can't get. Brilliant centre forward.
All right, well, question number 2. Are we surprised, because I'm not, with how Howard Webb reacted to Miles Lewis-Skelly's red card on the show Mic'd Up? Simon?
Yeah, and honestly, please, what happens is, this is, when they say they want referees to be interviewed after the games, right? What happens is you end up justifying a decision rather than clarifying it. And when he was going out, saying it was the wrong decision, great. Then please don't go on and say, but I can understand because it was just above the ankle and I can understand on field why he sent him off. You go, no, I'm really sorry, Howard, you've lost all your credibility. Yeah. Because anybody watches football, I was actually at the game. And I had to be careful because people know that I'm a gooner. And I just looked at it, and at first I thought, is it a denying goal scoring opportunity? Because Wolves are on the counter-attack, and you think, well, they're 60 yards away. You go, that's not it. And then you think, no, it's for serious foul play. It's a trip. That's it. Just say that Michael Oliver was too quick to get his red card out. He should have given himself that 3 or 4 second breathing space. Do you know what I mean? Because if he books him, and then the VAR thinks it's reckless and dangerous, then he can go and look at the screen. So that the decision was wrong, the whole protocol was wrong, Darren England was wrong, the assistant VAR was wrong, and just say, a massive cock up and move on.
Yeah. The main issue for me was the VAR, because Michael Oliver can get it wrong, and like you say, maybe in the moment you sort of think, was he clean through or something, but as soon as you saw the replay, everyone in the stadium, I was like, it's a mistake. And it's the same when they appealed it, the panel unanimously said, it was the wrong decision. And that's where the VAR just needs to tell the referee, like, look, you've made a huge error there. Look, go and have a look at that, and you'll want to reverse that. But it's just left on the on pitch, and And I always think when the Howard Webb stuff came out the other day, I think Arsenal fans have kind of forgotten about it all. And then suddenly
Makes you more angry.
It all came back up again and this sort of...
You actually look at it and think, oh, stop talking such nonsense, mate. What are you doing? And there is a hierarchy. The thing they've got to eradicate is, I've said it before, there's a hierarchy in the refereeing order.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
Anthony Taylor and Michael Oliver are obviously the FIFA referees. Yeah. Darren England is frightened to go against him and go, I think you've made a mistake. So they've either got to get the same team that always works together, and so you can trust each other, or, which I hope they're going to do, you get specialist VARs, and they don't care that what level you are as referee, they don't care what you think, that I'm going to point out something to you. That's what I think they need to do.
Just quickly, for me on that one, I think the thing that annoyed me the most about that particular decision, A, it was the wrong decision, but I think in the same game, he gave Andre Gomez a yellow card for a complete awful challenge. So, but he's felt that they're the same tackle. Lewis Skelly's, who was obviously just denying them a breakaway, which is a bit cynical. We understand that, but he felt that was the same decision as the Andre Gomez, which was high, reckless, out of control, which could have done some serious damage.
Yeah, definitely. And just going further on, that's why I think he struggled in Michael Oliver, we're talking about in the Merseyside derby, where I think his confidence had gone a little bit, and his head wasn't quite right on different decisions that he made, where he let some give innocuous fouls as free kicks, and then there was some challenges there he didn't give a yellow card. Do you know what I mean? You're like, no, you're not quite right at the minute.
Agreed. All right, the last question is, what did we make of Martin Keown's apology to Ruud van Nistelrooy on TNT Sports this weekend?
Have a day off, Martin. No, seriously. Why? No, honestly, why do you need to apologise? Because he ain't sorry.
Of course he's not.
Well, that's the point. That's what, you know, when someone, like you play Bentley, when someone comes through you, right, and you know that they've done you, and they apologise, that makes you more angry. Yeah. You know when someone's mistimed it or come in and go, sorry, mate, you go, all right. It's just a hollow apology. And for Martin just to go, sorry, because I'd have just blanked it completely.
Yeah, forgot about it. What do you think, Simon?
I'd forgotten almost about the sort of level of vitriol between Arsenal and Ruud van Nistelrooy until the sort of Keown apology. I was looking back over, like, I don't know if you've seen, but Vieira's autobiography is like they're calling Van Nistelrooy a coward, a cheat, and all this stuff. And kind of the amount of stuff that's been said between Keown and Van Nistelrooy, I just think after 20 years, I don't know if Van Nistelrooy was waiting for an apology, because I kind of feel like he'd have been like,
he don't care. By the way, he's Dutch. Dutch people are like, no, seriously, Dutch people are like, move on. They're very straight talking, aren't they? Dutch people are like, who cares, not bothered. And then Keown, Martin to go, he was very good at buying free kicks. Basically, you're saying that he dives. So, when he did it, I was like, I love Martin to death, but I was like, Martin, you don't need to. Yeah. What do you think? You think, would you be, if you was Van Nistelrooy,
I just thought from how long ago it happened, and when I think about the great rivalries of Premier League football, I mean, that is up there. That Fergie-Wenger kind of era is up there. And I think for Martin, all these years later, I mean, I'm pretty sure Ruud didn't even probably think about it when he went over there. He wasn't thinking, oh, it's Martin Keown there. I wonder if it'll kick off again. We're talking years and years ago.
Do you know where it comes from? It all came from my era. It came from when we played Man United FA Cup 5th round tie at Highbury. Brian McClair missed a penalty, bloomed it over the crossbar. I think it's still between with Harry Kane's ball going around like the earth. Nigel Winterburn ran in his ear and said, bad luck, old chap, bad luck next time. And then he started, remember the infamous 21-man brawl at Old Trafford? Yeah. That started from there. So Nigel's on the floor, Brian McClair started booting him, and then our lads all piled in, and we got docked 2 points. None of them two have apologised to each other. No. Because they're not sorry. Because it's professional football. They meant to do it. But that's where, and then obviously the Van Nistelrooy penalty, then that ignited it. So I love the fact that our games against Man United have got that little bit of...
It's celebrated, isn't it? You know, that rivalry is celebrated. The same way now we're kind of seeing a bit with the Arsenal-Man City rivalry that is celebrated. It's the best thing about the Premier League, isn't it? That's what you want, the needle that go in between. So I don't think it doesn't need to apologise.
You want players
that's what you want.
Yoga celebrations. Is that what you want?
That's Martin being Martin. Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks to Perry and Simon. And we'll see you next Thursday after we've played Nottingham Forest. And remember, trust the process.